Alrighty. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Friday night live stream for Week 12 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Now, again, as you guys can tell from the thumbnail, this is the Week 12 live stream for the Hidden Gems. Over the course of today, while doing a little bit of research in regards to the potential players that I thought about suggesting going into, the typical Friday Hidden Gems episode, it really was a thin week. Besides the 6 teams on bye, there isn't enough of contingency of injuries that have impacted our teams to where I feel confident naming 6 individual players that I say without a doubt are quote-unquote hidden gems, either starting in less than 25% of leagues or rostered in less than 20% of leagues, to where I'm like, I'm 100% confident in rolling out these guys. Now, there are a couple names and a couple contingencies of players that I did a full, spectrum of research on, specifically Amir Abdullah, the thumbnail of today's episode. So we'll talk about some hidden gems going into this weekend. Of course, for many of you, they will be hopefully available on the waiver wire. These 3 specific players we'll go into more detail in regards to as we progress throughout the live stream. But again, as we typically do via live stream, we're talking all things fantasy football. So if you guys have a question, whether it is a potential waiver wire pickup, a starter sit question, a trade question going into week 12, make sure you go ahead and type it in the chat and or send it in via super chat. We already know that a couple super chats were sent in prior to the beginning of the stream. Those claim priority. So if you guys want to get priority, get your questions answered and then head on out. Again, it is Friday, so I know you got places to be, but I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel with your presence, and of course, clicking the like button. Thank you guys for joining us. Also, like we typically do within the Hidden Gems episode, I have a couple entry suggestions for this upcoming weekend in regards to Underdog. So considering we didn't have an episode to put out, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different entries that I'm going to share with you guys in regards to potential plays. So I have, I've multiplied it by a pretty hefty margin because I had an additional extra time to really look at all of the numbers going into this weekend, and we'll talk about that as we progress. But let's go ahead and let's start out today's live stream here, answering some of these questions, shall we? Adam Thompson sent in this question a little while back. First question of the day from Adam. Adam, thank you very much. Adam says, in a half PPR, I need an RB2, I need 2 RBs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. We have Kyron, we have JT, we have Tracy, we have Hunt, we have Reed, we have Debo, Ladd. Also, Hawkinson or Andrews at tight end, Chiefs or Texans at defense. Okay, so of the available options you have, Adam, again, you have a lot of great available options. At running back, I think it's because it's a half PPR, the way that I would go about it would be playing Kyron, JT, and Kareem Hunt as your 2 RBs and your flex. As for the wide receivers that I would suggest specifically you play this week would be Reed and Ladd McConkey. Considering now that we have a confirmation that Brock Purdy's not going to play this week, we additionally have a confirmation that Isaiah Pacheco is not going to play this week. I'm glad you asked this question, Adam, so I can go ahead and from the top of the live stream kind of give you guys my thoughts on the matter. So it's been confirmed Brock Purdy's not going to play. I am going to, decrease the rankings of every single 49er to a massive extent because I didn't even realize that it wasn't Josh Dobbs to be the second quarterback. It's Brandon Allen, which I have no hope in going into this weekend, especially in Green Bay against that defense in a weather game. They're probably going to have to run the ball a bunch. Now, of course, we have seen the 49ers be somewhat of an offense in the absence of a quarterback entirely back in that playoff game a couple years ago against the Eagles where they had no quarterbacks on roster. So it's not going to be that bad, but it still will be a situation where we're looking for the alternative options of what you have on roster. With many of us obviously dealing with a bipocalypse, you may not have a pivoting option from Debo. You'll have to play it. But in your case, Adam, absolutely be willing to play Kyron, JT, Hunt, Reed, and Ladd McConkey. As for Hawkinson versus Andrews, I'd prefer to play Hawkinson at the moment. And in between the Chiefs and the Texans defense, pulling up, let's see here, my current rankings in terms of Patreon. Let me see where I have the Texans are 3 spots higher than the Chiefs. The Texans, as of right now, my number 3 defense on the week, followed by the Chiefs as my number 6 defense on the week. But again, they're both incredible options going into the circumstance. Thank you. All right, Wade had sent in a question. Thank you, Wade. Wade says, my question is a comment. Okay, got it. So I see it. So he commented in the live chat. Wade said, in a PPR, my running backs are Mixon, Dobbins, Tyrone Tracy, Roshan Johnson. My wide receivers are Puka, Chase, McLaurin, Devontae Adams, Downs, Hopkins. Tight end is McBride. Would it be worth trading JK/Terry or JK/DA for a top 10 running back? Need advice. Okay, so Is it worth trading these players for a top 10 running back? In terms of the, okay, so when I look at your roster as a whole, Mixon, Dobbins, Tracy, I mean, again, those are your 3 running backs for the future. Assuming you can start 2 running backs and 1 flex, you would be in a position in which you could, in a circumstance or in a bind upcoming, play all 3 of them, which I think is beneficial to you. But in the case in which you move theoretically like J.K. Dobbins, Devontae Adams, and you can get a top 10 running back, I would do that immediately. I'd absolutely be willing to make that kind of a move because even in the absence of Devontae Adams, you have Puka, Chase, and McLaurin, who in a full PPR, you're probably going to play one of those within your flex rather than that 3rd running back. But if you can get another running back anyway, let's do it. So yeah, if I was in your position, Wade, and you don't really have to worry about losing these players for this week, the preference that I would have would be trading away J.K. Dobbins and D.A., Devontae Adams, in order to get a top 10 running back. Now, again, typically, the running backs that I would try to target, at least this week, would be ones that are potentially on a bye week. Maybe you can go and take advantage of a team that is, in a bye week strain because of the bye-apocalypse. They want to give away Breece Hall, and then you can go ahead and take advantage of them by getting it on roster. Or you can go after, some alternative options there that haven't played well, like a Kyrie Williams, perhaps, that's out there. But yeah, I think that's a great plan of action to potentially prepare you for the fantasy playoffs. Now, if you're in a situation where you're not already kind of solidified for the fantasy playoffs, it may not be the greatest overall choice to make a trade of this caliber, but I'd assume, considering you're asking, I think that you're probably in a great position to make the fantasy playoffs. Thank you. Ray C sends in a question. Ray says, in a PPR, Hunter Tracy. In a full PPR, I think it's, okay, it is difficult because we don't know what we're going to see out of Tommy DeVito in that offense as a whole. So for right now, based on the fact that we have seen Kareem Hunt over the course of this entire season in the offense, 90% of the time handle 20 plus touches per game, I would assume that he is the better play of the two. Half PPR, full PPR, and or standard. It doesn't matter the scoring format. Kareem Hunt, in my opinion, is the best option, especially considering they take on the Carolina Panthers, which is, again, a flawless potential matchup. They're the 4th best matchup at the position. They're allowing over 20 fantasy points per game on the ground. They're allowing over 5.1 yards per carry on average to opposing running backs since week 6. What more can you ask for in this scenario? For those of you who have Hunt, you get to, of course, enjoy another week with him in your potential starting lineup. And then your follow-up question, Ray, was other team, Abdullah at running back or Thielen in the flex. Okay, so if you had to play one of those two in a full PPR scoring format, okay, so let's talk about Amir Abdullah now that you've asked this question. Okay, let's go into a little bit of a context as to why I like him potentially this week. If you're in a bind because of the bye-apocalypse and potentially, you need a flex option and or an RB2 this week. So Amir Abdullah, the reason why he's the thumbnail of today's episode, as you guys who, were waiting for the live stream or just hopped in, see it as such, is because earlier today, they did designate both Alexander Mattison and Zamir White, which is the number 1 and the number 2 running back of this offense, to be doubtful going into this weekend. And like we talked about all season long, as soon as a player has been given the doubtful tag, there's about a 99% chance that they're not going to play. I don't think we've ever seen a player this season, and I could be mistaken, but for as long as I remember this full 11-week block that we have experienced fantasy football, I don't remember a time in which a player was quote-unquote doubtful and ended up playing within the given week. So again, it is a very rare instance in which they do. So under the assumption that both Alexander Mattison and Zamir White are out, Amir Abdullah, who has played nearly 50% of the offensive snaps in the last 2 games for this offense, would be in line for the bulk majority of opportunity. Taking on the Denver Broncos, which is a familiar matchup for him because earlier this season, back in week 5, took on the Denver Broncos. In that game, it was an absent week in which Zamir White was dealing with an injury. And in the game, Amir Abdullah played a pretty good margin. Had himself 3 targets, 3 receptions, 9 receiving yards. But the most important thing was he had 5 rushing attempts for 42 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, scored 12.6 fantasy points earlier this year in week 5 against Denver. So when I went ahead and did a little bit more kind of digging in regards to the upside of Amir Abdullah, obviously, he hasn't played very much within this offense over the course of the last couple of years. Specifically, when I looked at the last, I really went and cherry-picked some of these stats, okay? But from 2020 to 2024, so there's a pretty wide span of time there, whether he was with the Las Vegas Raiders or Carolina Panthers, in games in which he's been given 8 or more touches, he's averaging over 9.5 fantasy points per game and a half PPR. Again, pretty good option. Now, I know that he'll be the primary back of this offense. And when we look at what this offense produced last week in specific, in regards to their overall opportunity share for their running backs, as a whole, the backfield had 11 total touches and 6 total targets out of the backfield. So if we're going to get ourselves a range of opportunity in which you can get potentially 15 opportunities in the direction of Amir Abdullah, whether it is on the ground or through the air, yes, there'll probably be another running back that'll be elevated from the practice squad. In the event in which Amir Abdullah is going to be exposed to 10 to 12 potential touches within the upcoming game, I think he's a solid play in comparison to the unknown variability of what Adam Thielen could present. We don't even know that he's at a full capacity. We don't know how many snaps he's going to play. He was limited every single day this week at practice, so they haven't even given the full workload yet of practice, much less. We know he's going to play, but it's just a matter of how much, which as of right now, I'd probably lean towards Amir Abdullah in that circumstance. He would have been this week's Soulstone because, again, the Soulstone requires a sacrifice, as we all know. But in this instance, yeah, I'm pretty confident with him instead of Thielen at the moment. If you wanted to play Thielen, I could understand it. But at the moment, I think it is just understandably, it is just sketchier to do so in my mind. Thank you. All right. Awesomer KO74084 sends in a question. Says, with Purdy out, half PPR Jennings or JSN? Yeah, I think that's very simple. Like I mentioned earlier, I do not really want to play a lot of my 49ers this week. Therefore, I would much rather play Jackson Smith and Jigba within the upcoming performance. He is the preferred of the two. Again, Jennings has found value with Purdy at quarterback. Same thing as, George Kittle. It's not to say that they can't succeed in the absence of him, but I think it's a major downgrade in regards to quarterback play. I mean, really, in terms of talent, in terms of the efficiency of the offense as a whole, this offense has already struggled with Purdy under center. Imagine without him under center. It's going to be a little bit of a rough week here, in my opinion. All right, we scroll down here. What does that say? It says seekings and gralutations. Mikey, you're absolutely insane. Okay. Anyway, continuing on, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Isaac Smith. Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate it. Isaac says, in a full PPR, we have Daniel/AK41. Okay, so Alvin Kamara is what you mean. Or Nix, Dobbins, Evans, rest of season. Okay, so considering this question, I think it's purely just a matter of what kind of wide receiver depth do you need. Because in the long haul, I don't love the upcoming matchups for Dobbins, but I think it's irrelevant as to what team they take on. They're a competitive football team, and regardless of who they play, Dobbins is still going to find success, more often than not because of the rushing touchdown upside. Nix has recently outplayed Daniels because of the Daniels rib injury. So it's really just a matter of how much do you need that wide receiver? How much does Evans kind of help your team? As of right now, if I was in your position, if Evans immediately becomes a starter alongside of Nix and Dobbins, considering Nix has an upcoming bye week and so does Daniels, but Dobbins and Evans are past theirs, and if it can help you potentially make the playoffs by getting these players now and not having Alvin Kamara on roster this week, and this is more of a, hey, I need to win this week and also hopefully the next couple to make the playoffs, then I'd say, yeah, let's make the move. But obviously, you are trading for a quarterback that has an upcoming bye week, so I mean, either way, you would have had to deal with the Week 14 bye. I'm just saying prepare for that in the upcoming, because you are bringing on 3 players and giving away 2. You're already going to have to drop another piece off your bench. So just, keep in mind that you're going to have to drop another one now in order to pick up a backup quarterback. All right, let's see here. Jesus sends in a question. It says Henry or Cade Otton or Javonte for my wide receiver, running back, or tight end flex. Cool. Of those available options, when you say Henry, I'm assuming you mean Hunter Henry, because it's not going to be Derrick Henry. If it was Derrick Henry, you knew to start him, right? Of course. So I'm going to assume that you know that, and that is not the question. If, in fact, the question is a matter of those 3 players, I would, as of right now, let's say it's a half PPR. Let's pull up my half PPR rankings. Javonte Williams in comparison to the alternatives. Where's Cade Otton in comparison? Yeah, I mean, as of right now, I would probably play Javonte Williams ahead of Cade Otton in a half PPR. If it was a full PPR, at that point, I would play Cade Otton. Thank you. All right, moving on to PC, who says Kittle or Disley. I'm going to be totally honest. I think I have to play Disley there. I don't know if I can objectively trust Brandon Allen. If we're going to be in a situation in which we knew, 100% he is going to funnel target, funnel target. Yeah, I don't know why. My brain lagged there. I thought I said it the wrong way. I thought for some reason, whenever I say funnel target, sometimes it comes out as Tunnel Fargate, which again, anyway, that's what I thought I originally said. Continuing on. In regards to the question, considering the matchup for Disley, the overall usage, I probably lean in that direction, to be totally honest. If it was a better backup quarterback, if Carson Wentz was, if Sam Darnold was still the backup for the 49ers, if it was anybody else, I'd be, very comfortable here. But look, the thing is with Brandon Allen, when's the last time he started in the league? The last time I remember, at least off the top of my head, of him starting was with the Denver Broncos. Let me see here. If I go to game logs career, the last full start that he had in the National Football League was back in January of 2022. So at the end of the 2021 season, he played for Cincinnati. In that game, 136 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 15 to 29, which again, in a different offense with more experience under belt, obviously Kyle Shanahan can maybe eliminate some of the overall struggles in his, in the absence of Purdy, and still allow a player of this caliber to just get the ball out of his hands quickly and let the players make, the overall upside plays after the catch. But I just don't trust it, ultimately. I'm not one to buy in on it. So I honestly probably would end up pivoting to Disley there. All right, continuing on. Jose L sends in a question. Says, Odunze or Waddle? Between the two of them, I'd rather play Rome Odunze this weekend. And then your follow-up says, wasn't able to type in the shoot. No, you're good. No problem, Jose. I'd rather play Rome Odunze there. Thank you. Dragon Slayer sends in a question. Thank you, Dragon Slayer. Says PPR start 2. We have DK Metcalf. We have Terry McLaurin. We have McConkey. Thanks. Of those 3 available, the 2 that I prefer as of this current moment in time is probably Terry and McConkey. And the reason why I've kind of changed my overall thought process on the matter is because I do expect that game in Seattle to be a rain game. I don't know what the overall status of the game in terms of how heavy the rain's going to be, but we're going to go into Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. At that point, you will either play DK or wait for Monday night to play McConkey at home. No weather conditions. The reason why I say you'd wait, because if we get to Sunday afternoon and the rain is not that bad in Seattle, I would prefer to play DK Metcalf there. But in the event in which it is a heavy rain game in which he may get himself less utilization, less proper overall target opportunity, McConkey's a fantastic pivoting option. So I'm going to say for right now, have Terry and McConkey in the lineup. In the event in which Sunday afternoon, it is a decent weather situation, which again, Seattle and Green Bay, those 2 games at home in those stadiums are expected to be the biggest weather conditioned situation. So keep that in mind. Thank you. Abide Los Angeles says, Pollard or Ladd McConkey in the flex. And also happy birthday, Andrew, the legend. Thank you. I appreciate it. So as of right now, I would only, quite frankly, I think I'd only ever play Pollard in maybe in a standard league. I think in a standard and half PPR, I would probably roll with Marlon Humphrey's not playing, right? Let me just confirm this. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, I put that into my Excel sheet. Let's go to the Baltimore Ravens. Let's see here. If we check out Baltimore Ravens, and then is it Humphreys? Maybe I'm mistaken. Who's the wide receiver, or who's the, maybe it is Marlon Humphreys. Let's look this up. Marlon Humphreys. He's not even on. Nope, not there. Nope, never mind. Maybe I'm just mistaken. There's a name for Baltimore that I thought was missing. So as of right now, what I'm thinking, yeah, if that's not the case, then I'm just completely cooked. Yeah, I'm cooked. It's Marshawn Lattimore. That's the name that that's why. Instead of Marlon, it's Marshawn. Never mind. Scratch it. As of right now, in a full PPR, I'm playing Ladd McConkey. In a half PPR, standard, I'm playing Tony Pollard. You didn't mention your scoring format, so as of right now, I will lean towards just answering across the board. Thank you, Abide. John War says, PPR, would you trade Higgins for Dobbins? If you needed a player this week and you are absent of a running back, then sure. But again, if you're saying specifically for the upcoming future, no. I would rather have Higgins as my upcoming flex option in comparison to Dobbins in a PPR for the remainder of the season. But in the event in which you need an auto start for this week, in the absence of Higgins considering his bye week, then sure, why not? Thank you. Heat South Beach says half PPR, Evans, Ridley, Hopkins, Ladd, Jennings, Myers, Pollard. Need 4 of these. I'm already down. I started Njoku. Man, that drop touchdown was brutal to say the least. Would have really helped us in that scenario. But let's see if we can help you out here. Heat South Beach, you have Evans, Ridley, Hopkins, Ladd, Jennings, Myers, Pollard. Okay, so in a half PPR scoring format, the order at which I would start these following players would be Evans is the preferred number 1. Then I probably go Pollard. Then I probably go Ladd. And then the last option is Ridley. Evans, Pollard, Ladd, Ridley. Those are the 4 that I would like to play Heat, South Beach. Thank you. I'm Gucci. You Polo sends in a question. Thank you, Gucci. Appreciate it. It says PPR, are we still going with Ridley over Aaron Jones this week? In a PPR scoring format, yes, I'm still very comfortable doing that. Again, if you feel like you want to play Aaron Jones there, I don't have an issue with that. I just feel like the matchup upcoming here for Calvin Ridley and Nick Westbrook-Ikine is relatively favorable. Now, earlier today, I was going to, again, like I mentioned earlier on when the live stream began, I did consider putting out a Hidden Gems episode, but I had another name, Nick Westbrook-Ikine, potentially on the list, as the reality stone of this week. So I just want to go ahead and give you a little bit of context in regards to him. As we all know, Nick Westbrook-Ikine and Calvin Ridley, the passing attack of the Tennessee Titans, which honestly hasn't looked terrible as of late. Sure, they'll turn over the ball every now and then with Will Levis, but ultimately they've still been able to score. Calvin Ridley a couple weeks back has a couple touchdown game. Nick Westbrook-Ikine, again, has still scored 5 touchdowns in the last 6 games? 1 in 5 of the last 6. Pretty ridiculous stat. But again, if we were going to have an episode in regards to a potential, hidden gem, Nick Westbrook would be one of them. I mean, the guy this season, over the course of the last 6 games, he's averaging a 2.52 fantasy point per target, average, which again, ridiculous. Now, obviously the touchdowns are the biggest difference maker, but even when we go back to his prior seasons, 2022 and 2023, in any game in which he's been given 6 targets or more, when you take the accumulation of those fantasy points, he's averaging over 13 fantasy points per game and a half PPR. So opportunity is all he's needed in his career. Obviously, since the departure of DeAndre Hopkins, and of course the fact that they're taking on Houston, which is the 4th best matchup at the wide receiver position, allowing nearly 32 fantasy points per game, we would assume that if we're going to get a situation in which Calvin Ridley is going to be relevant in a negative potential game script here, I'd assume that also Nick Westbrook-Ikine could throw his name into the hat to potentially be a viable option here, which again, if you are in a bind, I've mentioned it all week long, he is someone that I'm definitely interested in potentially, following up here and maybe starting. But as of your question in specific, let's see here. If I go to full PPR, Ridley, and then so as of right now, I've got Ridley pretty considerably ahead of Aaron Jones. 10 spots different in my full PPR flex rankings as of Thursday. Thank you. All right, moving on to Lock Screen Gaming. Says, Andrew, I donated on the 20th. My question was missed. Okay, let me go ahead and let me travel back to the 20th and let's see what your question was. I'm pretty sure I answered it because I do remember you sending in something, Lock Screen. But perhaps maybe you got hit with an ad or potentially you have to step away from the computer. Either way, I'm more than happy to potentially go back and find that question. So let me go ahead and let me pull up your channel activity over the course of the last week and let me see what kind of questions you've sent in. Oh, never mind, my YouTube crashed, so you're going to give me a second here. My apologies again. While my YouTube reloads here, for those of you who are joining us on this wonderful Friday night, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. You can be anywhere else in the world, but you decide to be here, and I greatly appreciate you guys supporting the channel with your presence. If you guys haven't yet already, again, if you have a question, do me a favor. Make sure you include your scoring format, whether you do send it in via Super Chat or the live chat. That is definitely important. Okay, so oh man, the YouTube just, I just got screwed over. Okay, hold up. Lock Screen Gaming. Okay, Lock Screen. Let me see if you typed in the chat again. No. Okay, do me a favor. Lock Screen, can you type in the chat so that I can click on your account, then go to your channel activity so that I can see the prior super that you sent the other day so I can find that question. So just type again in the chat because I just updated and it just broke my entire system because I had to refresh. Thank you. All right, Dirk Doug had just sent in a question, but nothing attached to it. Dirk, if you can also do me a favor, type in the live chat. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Again, because there's a big delay between when you guys sent this in and when I'm beginning to answer it, the chat is updated to get to the extent to where, it's gotten to a point to where the messages are evaporating and moving away with the chat. All right, Brian Colorado has sent in a question. Brian said, PPR, I have DK with Devontae Smith out. Pick one to start, Christian Watson or Adunze. I have Chase on bye. Got it. I would play Adunze this week. Thank you, Brian. I think it's very simple between the two of them. Adunze plays 80% of the snaps. Christian Watson plays 40% of the snaps. Adunze plays, I would say, the volume of routes that he runs in comparison is significantly higher. He will just be outright given more opportunity within the upcoming performance and has a better matchup ultimately and doesn't have to deal with the rain. Thank you. All right, Hodge, WBDJ says, Full PPR, tight end, Hunter Henry, Laporta, Andrews. Out of those three in a full PPR, I am most confident playing Hunter Henry. Thank you. Drew Sorensen Music in the chat says, who is the 49ers quarterback? So based on what we have read in terms of the overall reports and the overall kind of situation as it is transpired earlier today, the second string quarterback is Brandon Allen. He used to play for Cincinnati. He used to play for Denver back in 2019, 2018, 2017. So he's been in the league for 5 years. I would have thought that Joshua Dobbs would have been the starter, but they have named Brandon Allen the successor, the usurper of the quarterback position that was once, unfortunately, the injured Brock Purdy cannot play this week. And they've already sent out reports, or at least what I read earlier today, they're not 100% confident that he can even play next week, which, again, if you have Brock Purdy, make sure you pick up a quarterback. You might need to start them for the remainder of the season if this is something that could get even more serious. Prohibit sends in a question, says Disley or Kittle. Yeah, I'm going to play Disley there. I'm going to be totally honest. That's the way that I would go about it. All right, Corey Miller sends in something. Actually, yeah, let me see if I can find your question, Corey. Corey says, in a PPR start 2, do I risk it with Rashad Bateman, hoping that he plays, or Jalen Coker, Devon Vele, Alec Pierce, Nick Westbrook-Ikine, Christian Watson, Darius Slayton, McMillan, or Abdullah? Okay, so of the available options that you have, considering Rashad Bateman did not play today, we're going to have to wait until his status from tomorrow. So by tomorrow, we'll get a clearer picture as to whether or not he's going to play, Corey. In the event in which he is available to play, I would prefer him over all of the options that you've mentioned here. So yes, we're going to wait until tomorrow. In the event in which, again, he does not practice again tomorrow, and we have an uncertainty as to his status for Monday night's game, at that point, my next suggestion in a PPR format would be to play Alec Pierce, Nick Westbrook-Ikine, and or Abdullah for right now, in terms of the order at which I would go about those three options, I would probably roll it as, If I was going to order it, I'd go Alec Pierce 1, Nick Westbrook-Ikine 2, and Abdullah 3 in a full PPR. That's probably the way that I would roll it as of right now. Thank you. I could variably change that, but as of right now, that's what I feel most confident in. Okay, so now that we took care of that, let me see if Dirk had sent in a question in the chat. All right, there's Dirk. Dirk says, my running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Kyron, and Tracy. Very well. Wide receivers are Drake London, Jaden Reed, J-Mo, and Cedric Tillman. Should I move Kyron for a better receiver? I personally don't think you should, but if you were going to move him for a quote-unquote better receiver, who is potentially within the market? Like, what are you going to get in exchange? Are you going to get, theoretically, an A.J. Brown? Probably not. Are you going to get let's say, a Mike Evans, maybe? If it's like a Mike Evans and it's not like a A.J. Brown per se, if you're either going to get like a Terry McLaurin or a Neighbors or a Mike Evans or something of that exchange, you could. I don't have an issue with it. If it was me, I'd prefer to just probably keep Kyron though, rest of the season, just to at least have a solidified running back depth for the remainder of the season. Okay, so we took care of Dirk there. Did you have any other questions here in the chat? Let me just confirm. Typed it again. Okay, thank you, Dirk. I got it. Appreciate it. Okay, so we took care of that one. Then we need to find lock screen because I messed that one up. Okay, lock screen. Oh, okay, never mind. You're just going to retype it out. Perfect, lock screen. I appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time to type that out. Says, Andrew, my starting lineup is Daniels. Okay, so Jaden Daniels. Robinson, as in Brian Robinson. Gibbs, Sutton, Downs, Njoku. Harrison Jr., Fairbairn, Buccaneers defense. Great, I love it. My bench has Jennings, don't need to start that. Quentin Johnson, which I would consider potentially starting. If it was me personally, I would prefer to play him over Josh Downs. Continuing on, you have the Vikings defense, which honestly, I'd also prefer to play the Vikings defense over the Bucks. Top waiver priority is Hunt. Okay, yeah, you should probably pick up Hunt as well. Yeah, so look, if I was in your position here, Lock Screen Gaming, the variable changes that I would make within the starting lineup, the things that I'm keeping as is, obviously Njoku's played, so you're not going to change that, but I would keep Jaden Daniels as a quarterback, Brian Robinson, and Gibbs as your two starting running backs. I would change Josh Downs from wide receiver 2 to Quentin Johnston. I would still leave Cortland Sutton in there. I would try to pick up Hunt to play him in the flex over Marvin Harrison, and I'd play Fairbairn at kicker and the Vikings as your defense. That's the way I go about it. Thank you, Lock Screen. Appreciate it. Okay, so we took care of that. My neck just broke. Okay. We continue on. Let's see here. We took care of that. Okay, perfect. Emily Doyle with a question. Emily, thank you very much. Says Kareem Hunt or Josh Downs in the flex in a full PPR. I think it's just safe to play Kareem Hunt there. Like, The Lions defense is solid. And Josh Downs, over the course of the last 2 games with Anthony Richardson, has been solid. I mean, quite frankly, Josh Downs over the course of the last 5 weeks has been incredible. So really, he's never slowed down. I just don't know if the matchup is I don't love the matchup. Additionally, on top of it, I don't trust that Anthony Richardson is going to be that guy that he was last week against an elite defense taking on the Detroit Lions. And they are an elite defense in comparison to what the Jets are. That's the kind of season we've had here in 2024, where the Lions are the elite defense and the Jets are the mediocre one. So as of right now, I would probably rather play Kareem Hunt against the Carolina Panthers at the moment, even in a full PPR format. I think the baseline of production, the stability that you can potentially grab there with the touchdown upside and the 20-plus touches that he'll probably get within the game, I think it's just safer within the upcoming performance. Thank you. We move on to a question from Nasty Nick. Thank you, Nasty. Says, would you trade Achane and A.J. Brown for Amon-Ra and JT? Achane and A.J. Brown for Amon-Ra and JT. No. If it was me, rest of season, I'd prefer to have the Achane and A.J. Brown side, especially if it's a full PPR. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from, let's see here. I think the next person on the list was, yes, Jordan Wilson. Thank you, Jordan. Jordan says, flex Juwan Jennings or Bucky Irving? As of this week, considering the absence of Brock Purdy, I think the answer is very simple. I would much rather play I'd much rather play Bucky Irving against the New York Giants defense. Excuse me. Bearcat says, cheers, Andrew. What's up, Bearcat? Hope you're doing well. Bearcat says, I have Dell, Eckler, and Waddle in the flex. Full PPR, I have, okay. Between those 3 options, I am playing Dell 1, Eckler 2, Waddle 3 in a full PPR scoring format. That is the order in which I would approach it this week. As for your second question, you said, I have the Chiefs and the Buccaneers defense. Your thoughts? As of this week, as it currently stands, the higher ranked defense between the two is the Chiefs. I would prefer to play the Chiefs as of this week. I still do believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary has just systemic problems considering all of the injuries that they have, accrued over the course of this entire season. Unfortunately, Todd Bowles just puts them into, vulnerable positions, and their secondary members are just not good enough to be able to handle that, even against Mr. Tommy Cutlets. It was crazy, huh? Today, Daniel Jones being outright released. I respect the organization for doing that. I truly do. But it was a surprising one to see, the very least, that they outright just cut him. That is interesting. All right, let's see here. Now that we took care of Bearcat, we took care of Dirk again. Justin Wright sent in a question. Thank you, Justin. Says, pick 2 in a full PPR. We have Chuba Hubbard, Tracy, and Reed. Also, okay, so out of those potential options, I would want to play Tracy and Reed. Mainly because, again, Chuba Hubbard has to do with Jonathan Brooks and his return into the overall mix, and the Kansas City matchup, which I do not love. So I would prefer to play Tracy and Reed. Now, going into this upcoming Sunday, if we look at the overall schedule of when these games kick off, the reason why I want to specifically mention this is because Chuba Hubbard does play in the morning slate against the Chiefs, while Green Bay plays in the afternoon slate. By tomorrow afternoon, if we don't have a clear picture as to what the weather is going to look like in Green Bay, as of right now, based on the weather report system that I use, at least to kind of confirm what we're looking at going into this upcoming weekend, my source specifically says there's a 29% chance of rain. Now, again, 29% specifically being the area, 29% of it is going to be covered by rain. It doesn't mean that it's going to sit over the stadium. So as of right now, if I was in your position, I would try to play Reed alongside of Tracy. If the weather is expected to be a complete disaster of a downpour or potentially even snow, again, we want to avoid any sort of snow globe game, we would then pivot to just playing Chuba in the morning. But again, I think that's more of something that we'll determine tomorrow as we get closer. But yeah, Tracy and Reed we want to play. Otherwise, we pivot to Chuba and Tracy. Also, next question says K. Dotton or Tank Dell in the flex. Between those 2 options, I would prefer to play K. Dotton. And I understand that your Bowers is, your tight end is Bowers, so you keep it as that. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Where are we? Okay, good to go. Continuing on. 24K Mark sends in a question. It says Goddard, Henry, or Ertz. Out of those 3 available options, considering, Devontae Smith is going to be out, Dallas Goedert is an even better tight end play this week, so that's the direction I'm going in. Thank you. KJ Sticks sends in a question. Says full PPR, flex Stevenson or Bucky. I would prefer, as of right now, if it was me, if it's my lineup, I am playing Bucky Irving there. Thank you. Moving on to, and again, if you would want to avoid Bucky, let's say, for example, you're like, hey, listen, Andrew, when I look at Ramondre, he's had 20 plus touches in, 3 of the last 4 games. I totally understand it. I mean, I don't even argue with that. Opportunity is king. I 100% admit it. But when we talk about the overall matchup in itself, it is a very favorable week this week, specifically for Bucky Irving in the offense. Once they take a commanding lead, they're going to run out the clock. And when they do so, it is going to be with Bucky Irving, who is their primary RB in terms of attempts. He has outcarried a guy like Rachaad White over the course of the last, 4 games together. He's outcarried him by like 15 plus touches in that category. Even in the most recent games being all negative game scripts. So obviously we've seen a lot of Rachaad White in those circumstances. In a positive game script will be easier for him. Okay, Anthony, let's see here. Anthony, where art thou? Let's see here. Can I find? Oh, okay, my YouTube is starting to glitch. Where is it? Why can't I find it? Anthony Pena. Anthony Pena, you sent in a super. There was nothing attached to it. Do me a favor and type in the live chat what your question was, and I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you. All right, continuing on until that's sent in. Jose Rodriguez says, my running back is Mixon. Pick one, Rachaad White or James Conner. Between those two available, I am playing James Conner very confidently. He's going to be fantastic this week. Hodge sent in a follow-up question. Says, pick 3 in a full PPR. Downs, D-Hop, Jennings, Quentin Johnston. As of right now, it's probably Downs, D-Hop, and Quentin Johnston. I'm probably benching Jennings this week. Moving on to Lamosity, who says, in a half PPR, trade Marvin Harrison Jr. for Evans immediately. Without a doubt in my mind, I would rather have Evans rest the season. Thank you, Lamosity. Moving on to Evan Call, who says, in a 16-man full PPR, flex 2, Jamison Williams, Jacoby Myers, DeAndre Hopkins, Austin Eckler. Thank you. Okay, so of those available options, which again, get some pretty solid ones, if I'm playing 2 of these players, let me see where I had them in a full PPR. I'm curious where Eckler is in my rankings in comparison from Thursday. Eckler's the lowest ranked of the bunch. So it's pretty much, as of right now, Jamison Williams and Jacoby Myers. Well, you know what? If it was me, yeah, I'm playing Jamison Williams and D-Hop this week. Those are the 2 that I would flex. Evan, thank you. All right, let's see here. Denon has sent in a question. Denon says, how cooked am I? I have Christian McCaffrey as my starting running back spot. I could have played Chubb in my flex, but I put Pollard. Honestly, I don't even blame you. I would have done the same thing. Because what has Chubb done this season to kind of prove that he needed to have been started last night against Pittsburgh? So, I mean, yeah, if it wasn't for the 2 touchdowns that he got, wasn't going to be in a great position. So, I don't blame you. I don't think you're cooked. If anything, I'm hoping that the 49ers lean upon the running game that much more. Okay, let's see. Did Anthony Pena send in a super or in a follow-up question by any chance? Let's go ahead and scroll down to the bottom of the live chat and see if Anthony was anywhere in here. Anthony, no, nothing? Okay. If you end up sending in or just typing in the live chat, Anthony, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, continuing on, we had Chubes McGee, who says, still trying to move White to get a wide receiver. I got a few more offers. White plus Neighbors for AJ Brown. Ask to add Waddle, ? And then the second one is White plus Neighbors for Debo and Terry. Or ask for White Neighbors for Evans and Terry. Yeah, if you can get the Evans and Terry combo, I'd be more than happy to take that. Very happy, in fact. I think that would be the preferred because it gives you the wide receiver depth that you need. And for the remainder of the season, Terry does have an upcoming bye week, but at least Evans will be able to kind of outright be that wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1, depending on what the situation is for the remainder of the season for your team. So yeah, if you can make that final trade there, Chubes McGee, then yes, that's the way that you would go about it. Thank you. Ryan sends in a question. Thank you, Ryan. Says in a PPR, drop Davis to start Ikine or Alec Pierce. Drop Davis? I'm trying to figure out off the top of my head who the heck is Davis. So the only Davis that I have in my rankings is Davis Allen. So I don't know who Davis is. Maybe you had typed in a follow-up that perhaps, no, it doesn't say anything about that. So yeah, I don't know who Davis is, but under the assumption that I either play Alec Pierce or Akine, I would prefer to play Alec Pierce there. Raghav sends in a question. Says, started Kupp and Debo at wide receiver and Kittle at tight end. Okay. Still starting Kittle, but worried about Debo, especially with Purdy out. I have Jacoby Myers on my bench and can pick up Dobbs, Adunze, Watson, or Wanda Robinson. Who do I start? That is a very difficult question. As of right now, am I playing? I'm almost to the extent where I'm probably considering playing a Dunze in that situation. So if I was in your spot, I'd probably pick up a Dunze and hold him on roster. And if by Sunday morning, if you see the ranking as a Dunze, above Debo, which it very well could be because I haven't established where I want to put him, I got to still recalibrate the entire projection model. Once I get there, by Sunday morning, we'll have a clearer picture. But yeah, I think you should pick up a Dunze out of all those options, keep him on roster, and let's wait till Sunday. And by Sunday morning, if you can swing on by, I'll probably have a for sure answer. But that's probably the direction I go in. Thank you. Joseph Morales in the chat says, pick 3 in a full PPR. Downs, Hopkins, DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison, Waddle, and Quentin Johnston. Of those available options, Quentin Johnston, Downs, and probably DJ Moore are the... Well, okay, so technically I want to play Quentin Johnston, Downs, and Marvin Harrison. Those are the 3 that I want to play. The reason why I just said DJ Moore is because if the Seattle game is going to be a rain game and Marvin Harrison is going to disappear because of that event, that's the only thing that concerns me. But for right now, you know what? We'll just say Downs, Quentin Johnston, Marvin Harrison. If the Seattle game is going to be a rain fest and a disaster, you could theoretically pivot to playing DJ Moore there instead. Thank you. Mikey says, in a full PPR, Debo, Jawan Jennings, Marvin Harrison, Garrett's on a bye, Elijah. Okay. We have Rashad, we have Tracy, we have Etienne, we have Benson. Should I drop Etienne for Westbrook or drop more? I wouldn't drop more there. No, his upcoming schedule is pretty solid. Or should I pick up someone else? Also, Henry in the flex with Andrew starting. Okay, interesting circumstance here. You are definitely in a position to where you pretty much kind of have to play one of those options for the 49ers. I don't see a way in which you can get out of it. Am I dropping ETN? I mean, look, when I look towards the future of the season, considering your running back depth as it currently stands with Rashad, Tracy, and ETN, if you drop ETN, like that Jacksonville schedule from weeks 15 through 17 is really promising. So I don't know if I'm dropping him just for this week, but if you're in a situation where you're in a must-win scenario, am I playing Westbrook Ikine above Jawan Jennings? Probably not. I don't know if I'm that ballsy at the moment. I could get to that point by this upcoming weekend, but as of right now, I probably just keep what you have on roster. I think they are better options than the alternatives that you've mentioned here, Mikey. Thank you. All right, Speak Your Piece says Mahomes or Herbert or Nix. Between those 3, I have it in the current order of Bo Nix 1, Herbert 2, Mahomes 3. Thank you. Isaac Smith says, in a full PPR this week, Chuba or Sutton? In a full PPR, I would much rather play Cortland Sutton. As for your next question, Lad McConkey or Jawan Jennings, I'd much rather play Lad McConkey. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Somebody in the chat says, has he gone over gems and slips? I have not gone over slips. We'll do that in just a moment here. Let me just catch up with some of the questions, and we'll go ahead and we'll put together some of those slips right now. H. Jockish 7 says, Pop Douglas, Watson, Alec Pierce PPR. Out of those 3 available options, Pop Douglas 1, Alec Pierce 2, Christian Watson 3. Then your next question was Kyler or Nix. I'd much rather play Bo Nix, indoor stadium, in controlled weather environment, and he's been on fire, takes on the Raiders. So yeah, Bo Nix would be the preferred of those 2. H. Jockish, thank you. Then we move on to a question from Human Ziggy. Human, where art thou? It's here. Human Ziggy says Kraft, Schoonmaker, Jatavion Sanders. Pick one in a full PPR. Of those 3 options, I would go with Schoonmaker probably as my number 1, Jatavion number 2, Kraft number 3. Also Lutz, Schrader, Folk, or McManus. Out of those available options, as of this week, I don't really want to play McManus in the weather. Folk, again, is very sketchy. Out of those options, I probably play Lutz. And then you have Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Levis. Pick 2 of those quarterbacks. I would play Anthony Richardson alongside of Stroud. And then you say Christian Watson, Pop Douglas, Thielen, Booty, or Westbrook Ikine. Out of those available options, if it's a full PPR, it is Pop Douglas. If it's a half PPR, it is Nick Westbrook. Thank you. All right, we scroll down to a next question. G. Santos says, sit, PPR, Jennings, McBride, Bowers, DK, McLaurin, Hill. Sit. So if I'm sitting one of these options of the available, the player that sits, quite frankly, is Jennings. I mean, it's either Jennings or McBride. At the moment, I'm immediately thinking it is Jennings, though. So Tyreek Hill plays, DK plays, McLaurin plays, Bowers plays, and it's just between McBride and Jennings. Both of them in weather-implicated games. I'd probably just play McBride there, honestly. Trojan 3659 says, sup, Andrew, to PPR Jonnu or Goddard with Smith out. With Smith out, I would much rather play Goddard this week. Thank you. Rogo says, happy Friday, my dude. Glad that you're here. Yep, no problem. Glad to be here. Pick one for the flex. What does it say? Tyreek Hill, Zay Flowers, Chuba Hubbard, Pollard. I've got Evans, JSN as my wide receiver 1 and 2. Literally asking for a friend. LOL. I appreciate you, bro. No problem, Rogo. I appreciate you. Of those available options, Tyreek Hill's got to be the answer for sure. Against New England, I think that is just the automatic play. You could theoretically, I could convince myself to play Zay Flowers against the Los Angeles Chargers secondary that has not played well over the course of the last month of the season. But Tyreek Hill is the, omega ceiling with a solid floor of production. So I'm going to go in that direction. Thank you, Rogo. All right, couple more questions here. Then we'll go ahead and answer, or then we'll go ahead and put together a couple slips in regards to entries for this upcoming weekend. Bacon says, is there a Hidden Gems video? Nope, not for this week. But if there was going to be, again, we mentioned it earlier on in the live stream, if there were going to be players that are going to specifically be mentioned, Amir Abdullah, Nick Westbrook, Aikine. Those are two that I'm super confident in regards to potentially being hidden gems. The rest of the field, again, there's a couple contingent players that I could throw out, like an Adam Thielen, or a potential Schoonmaker, but really, those are just kind of, they're risks. And yeah, I don't really feel like we're about to, yeah. Was anybody asking for hidden gems? Hasn't been listening for 45 minutes? Yeah, I know it is what it is, Ron. No, listen, that's the whole point of a live stream. Again, they'll come in thinking it's hidden gems. It's a little bit different. Again, the only reason I didn't put a hidden gems video out today is because I really don't feel confident with what is out there in terms of quote unquote gems. There isn't enough depth for me to say, yeah, we can go ahead and 100% play these guys. I've had that confidence a week past. There's too many teams on bye this week to objectively say that there are 6 players at the capacities at which I typically kind of call players hidden gems to suggest. Anyway, Big Verge sends in a question. It says, PPR, I need a flex, Dowdle, Hubbard, or Thielen. Out of those available options, I'm playing Hubbard. Thank you. Ben has sent in a question. Ben, where is your question, Ben? Ben says, I have Pickens, Adams, Ladd, McConkey, and Kupp. Can I play 4 of these, including flex? What do you think about these receivers? I mean, look, these receivers for rest of season are very solid. As for this week, obviously, if you've already played Pickens and and Adams is on a bye week, then of course you're playing Lamb, McConkey, etc. But for the remainder of the season, I have no issue with this group. Would I try to theoretically improve upon it? Sure, but if your trade deadline's already passed, then I don't have an issue with it. I think it's very strong. Going for the remainder of the season, like your number 1 and 2 combo are most likely going to be like Kupp, Lamb, or 1 through 3 are going to be Kupp, Lamb, Pickens. Adams could get into the mix if he is going to be more consistent, but again, you have to give him time to prove that before you can throw him in, especially for the upcoming fantasy playoffs nearly here. Victor Blanco says, chat please, thanks. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see here, Victor. Victor Blanco says, I have Josh Allen, Bo Nix, Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, Eckler, Jamar, Sutton, Neighbors, Jennings, Disley, Kelsey. I'm 5 and 6 in 7th place. If I win, I can contend. I got offered Amon-Ra for Jamar. Okay, cool. I'm cool with it. Give me Amon-Ra. I want to make the playoffs. I want to ensure that I can do so. And I think bringing in Amon-Ra in this scenario allows you to get one step closer with a potential victory this week. So yeah, if I was in your position, I know it's a desperation move, but I mean, shoot, you're still getting a very valuable wide receiver in return. Are you getting a downgrade? Absolutely, but you'll take the downgrade considering Amon-Ra doesn't have an upcoming bye week, and it'll help you potentially capture a victory here. Appreciate it. All right, after Victor Blanco, we had another one from Big Verge who says, PPR, Richardson, May, or Williams? Out of those 3, the order at which I currently have it is May number 1, Richardson 2, and Caleb Williams 3. Thank you. Okay, so again, for those of you who are joining us on this wonderful Friday night, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Earlier today, we did not post a Hidden Gems video. In fact, there are no outright hidden gems outside of Amir Abdullah and Nick Westbrook Aikine that I want to 100% put my Hidden Gem stamp on. The rest of the gems were calcified in the rock, and they unfortunately we weren't able to thaw them out and or excavate them. But like I do in every Hidden Gems episode on a Friday, I do suggest entries going into this upcoming weekend's underdog place. Therefore, I want to go ahead and do that right now with you guys. So for those of you who are potentially interested in that kind of capacity of tailing those picks, we can go over those right now. Again, these are picks that I've been going over all day and ones that, quite frankly, I was going to suggest during the video, but now that I had a kind of extended period of time of looking at all stats, we're going to go pretty deep. So if you send in a question within the next, I would say 20 minutes, expect it not to be answered for the next 20 minutes here. Okay, here we go. So let's travel on over to Underdog and let's go ahead and put some of these together. So in regards to potential plays that I really like this weekend, I've categorized them in different capacities. So the first overall play that I like this weekend, I called the anytime touchdown play, because I'm going to go ahead and put 3 players within this singular slip that have all consistently scored touchdowns. Now you can go ahead and find other players that kind of calibrate and or are on a similar streak of success, but of course, like we typically do, Derrick Henry should always be implicated to being within a slip, mainly because, again, he has had 11 consecutive games in a row of 1 touchdown minimum. The other player that I am very much so confident in terms of his streak of success, in terms of scoring touchdowns, is Joe Mixon. Again, coming off of a weekend in which he had 3 rushing touchdowns, but has scored 1 touchdown minimum in 7 of the last 7 healthy games. So you would assume, I mean, look, dude, his percentage in terms of the multi is lower than Derrick Henry. They assume that there is a higher potential chance that Joe Mixon scores a rushing touchdown in comparison to Derrick Henry, which is incredible. And then the final player that I wanted to throw into the mix. Now, again, listen, do this responsibly. Do not feel obligated to have to follow any of these players. You can take it any which way you want to go about it. This is just the ones that I'm going to quite literally put in right now. I'm going with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has scored a touchdown in 8 consecutive games. Why wouldn't I send it? They play against the Indianapolis Colts. I would assume they're going to score points. And when they do, let's see, is there any in-game bonus? Nothing there. Okay. This is a 3.95x. So again, if I theoretically put 25 on it, it turns into 100. So it's like a 4x multi. That I don't mind. So I'll send that. Boom. First play of the day. Okay. This is the anytime touchdown play. Streak of players that are finding success. Now, other players that I could have theoretically put into this, an anytime rushing touchdown from Jalen Hurts. He has done that in 5 consecutive games. Of course, as we all know, scoring 9 rushing touchdowns in the last 5 games. So I could have thrown him in there. I thought about it, but as of right now, these other players have had a longer streak of success in terms of accomplishing this. It doesn't mean that they have a potential to continue it, but of all the players, these are the 3 that I really do believe in that category. Then we continue on with a player that I throw in within my entries every single weekend when I have a potential of doing so. Devon Achane, I'm taking him higher than 3.5 receptions. He has gone higher than 4. He's got 4 receptions or more in 6 of the last 6 games in which we have seen a starting Tua Tagovailoa. So that, in my opinion, is an automatic. Another player that, again, is going to get themselves opportunity in this regard, again, should be a player of the... Actually, you know what? Let's just do this really quickly. Let's close that. I had my Discord open and I saw notifications blasting. Is A.J. Brown. Look, A.J. Brown has had himself, as long as he has been healthy thus far this season, literally 6 out of the last 6 healthy games, 5 or more receptions. So taking him higher than 4.5, I am more than happy with. Are these overall multis kind of really low? Absolutely. But I do not care. In this scenario, I will send it again. Actually, do I want to throw... Yeah, look, now I'm going to suggest a miscellaneous additional play. Anytime you get into a situation where the multi is just not enough, like this is a 1.44x, mainly because it's going to happen. But anytime this is what I prepared already. Anytime I have a potential play in which I needed to throw an extra thing on top of it, I'm going to throw Jake Bates on top of every single play in which I need an extra leg that I know is an automatic. Jake Bates, I'm going to go higher on his overall extra points made. Over the course of the last 7 games, he has been able to surpass this number and gotten 3 or more extra points in 6 of the last 7 games. To put it into perspective, how successful Jake Bates has been in terms of extra points made over the course of the last 7 games. Let me just go ahead and give you a rundown in terms of extra points made going back to September 30th. 6, 5, 4, 7, 3, 2, and 7. Those are the extra points made in those last 7 games. The only game in which he did not score 3 extra points is when Jared Goff threw 5 picks. I would assume in a game in which this is the highest scoring implicated game based on Vegas, and the Lions are 7.5 point favorites. They're going to score 3 touchdowns as an offense. Jake Bates will get 3 PATs. Now I'll go ahead and I'll put this entry in as a $25 one. Boom. There's the second one going into this weekend. Relatively safe. Now we continue with more plays. This is, okay, so that was like the anytime reception with the extra additional miscellaneous. Then we continue on with anytime rushing yards from running backs. Now, again, with the potential of Brock Purdy out, I believe that Josh Jacobs, again, was already in a fantastic position to succeed. But when we talk about his overall rushing success as of late, we've talked about it. In terms of total yardage, he's been able to go for over 90 plus yards in 6 of the last 6 games. He's been able to score, 5 touchdowns in the last 6 games. He's been great across the board. You could take the anytime touchdown. But at this current moment, I'm taking rushing yards and him going specifically higher than 59.5. He has accomplished 62 or more rushing yards in 6 of the last 6 games. Assuming they take on a 49ers team that, again, is wounded and is going to be in a situation where they may be down for majority of the game, they will run the ball more and try to kill the clock in Green Bay. Josh Jacobs going higher than that is one of my plays. Then we move on to Jahmyr Gibbs, who very similarly am going to take higher than 59.5 rushing yards because thus far this season, he has accomplished over 63 rushing yards in 9 of the last 9 games. He has done it on a consistent basis. He has looked great. What am I doing alongside of it? Just to add the third leg, I am throwing Jake Bates into the mix. I am putting a $25 entry for $61.75, and I'm sending that one. Continuing on. Yes, there is a lot of them. We are not stopping. We're only halfway through. Now, in regards to Jake Bates, the Lions, I'm all in on the Lions this weekend. Enough so to where I am going and I'm taking David Montgomery anytime touchdown, because anytime this team is going out here and blowing teams out and putting up points, David Montgomery is implicated for a touchdown. Earlier today, was it today or yesterday? One of the last 2 days, we literally saw Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions, go up to the podium and quite literally say that he compares David Montgomery to backs of old. He said, honestly, watching David Montgomery reminds me of Walter Payton and Earl Campbell, man. That's what he's comparing him to. Either way, David Montgomery has scored a touchdown in 8 of the last 10 games. I would assume that this is an automatic. Another running back that I feel very confident in going into this weekend in terms of a rushing touchdown is Brian Robinson Jr. Brian Robinson has scored a rushing touchdown in 6 of the last 8 games he has played. He takes on Dallas. Again, both of these running backs in incredible overall upcoming matchups. I think these two are pretty solid plays. If I was going to throw with another play, I don't want to keep using Jake Bates over and over and over again. I might. Do I throw Jake Bates again into this? How do I want to do this? Let's think about this for a second. Do I throw Jake Bates into this again? No, that's too much Jake Bates. I'm too. Yeah, I got to diversify my portfolio. Okay, hold up. I'm not looking at the live chat, by the way. I haven't looked at the live chat for the last 10 minutes here. Okay, we're continuing. If we're in a situation in which I want, put in a third leg here. What am I going to throw in? Do I want to throw in? Yeah, you know what? Let's add more to this. Okay, so let's continue on. Let's talk about James Conner. I'm not going to throw him in with a touchdown, even though I actually think it's pretty possible. The only stat that I like in regards to James Conner is 2 of them in specific. Now, it's expected to be a rain game, sure. But there are 2 stats that I like. Either fantasy points, because I've mentioned it over the course of the last couple of weeks, 8 of his 10 games this season have consisted of 13 or more fantasy points. 6 of the last 8 games over 100 total all-purpose yards. So there's a possibility that if you take all-purpose yards and maybe take it at 75.5, it could be solid. I honestly I thought about taking the 3 receptions. I honestly like 2 receptions, mainly because he has done this in 6 of the last 6 games. I'm just going to throw him in as the final leg of this overall slip. Boom. Send this one. Next. All right. Then we continue on with, okay, so this one's a little bit sketchy. All right. Anthony Richardson. All right. This one is, again, this is the one that I probably say donate to St. Jude's. Okay. Do not put this entry in, but I'm going to put it in just in case if you're as crazy as I am, you're willing to go for it. I'm saying higher on receptions for Caleb Williams and Anthony Richardson. Not because they consistently throw interceptions. In fact, Caleb Williams hasn't thrown an interception in 4 games. But when I look at the defenses that they're where's his interceptions? But when I look at the defenses that they're specifically playing, Minnesota and the Detroit Lions, both of those defenses have caused an interception every single fucking game this year. Every single game, they've caused at least 1 interception. So in this case, I'm putting a $10 entry. It's not a $25 one. It's not crazy. Both these guys throwing a pick. We'll see what happens, okay? If by Sunday it doesn't come to fruition, so be it. I'm willing to live with that. Then we close out a couple of the last ones. In terms of Johnny Smith, I really like his overall potential this weekend. He has had himself 3 or more receptions in 6 of the last 6. I think that is an automatic there. I move on to Kelsey. Again, coming off of a pretty lackluster performance where Noah Gray stole everything, I'm going higher than 4.5 receptions. He has gotten himself 5 or more receptions in 5 of the last 7 games. I would assume that he is pretty stable for that. And while we're on the topic, we'll just call this the stud tight end tier or play. Let's go with Brock Bowers going higher than his receptions. Again, got himself 37% of the overall targets in his direction last week. I'd assume that he's going to have himself a solid week. Last time out against Denver, 8 receptions on 12 targets, nearly 20 fantasy points in a half PPR, over 20 in a full PPR. Brock Bowers. Could throw Goddard into the mix. I haven't checked out Goddard's numbers. What is Goddard looking at right now? I'd have to, let's see here. 4.5, 3, you know what? Yeah, let's take 3.5. We'll throw that on top of it. Okay. Is the multi kind of, yeah, sure, it is. But I'm confident. Therefore, I take. Okay. So that encompasses all of the plays that I put together. Now, I'm sure there are plays out there that you guys feel very confident in. If you do, again, you guys know the deal. There's a link down in the description if you guys want to get my rankings every Sunday and or potentially tail these picks that we've gone over today. Some, obviously, I'm more confident in. Some that I'm saying just go donate to St. Jude's instead. But, there's a mix, okay? But in this overall scenario, we've covered it. We've answered it. Boom. Now I want to go back into the live chat. I'm sure there have been questions posted. I'm sure there have been suggestions posted in regards to plays for this weekend. Let's go ahead. Let's get back into that overall mix. And let me go ahead and throw the football. It will be flying at the screen any second now. And we're back to the full screen. Okay, so back into the live stream / full screen questions answered portion. We continue with Niner86, who says, need a flex in a half PPR, Abdullah or Adunze? Thanks. In a half PPR scoring format, as of right, I would, damn. I'd say it's safer to probably play Abdullah in a half PPR. I want to say Adunze because I think there's potential of the deep ball being implicated. Yeah, if it's me, if it's my team, I'm playing Adunze. I think it is safer to always go with the running back in a half PPR because of the volume of touches. But in this scenario, I think I'm bold enough and I'm willing to take a Dunze there. Luke C says PPR, Booty, Westbrook Ikine, Bourne, Bateman, or Deontay Johnson. Of those available, Luke, under the assumption that Bateman gets any sort of practice tomorrow, I'd like to play him. In the event in which he does not get a practice or even like a full participation tomorrow, I'm just pivoting and I'm playing Westbrook Ikine there. Alrighty. How about Goddard with no Smith? Yeah, Goddard's going to be great. Should be fantastic this weekend. John Lamby says, start Gus Edwards or Cam Akers. Between the two of them, I'd rather play Cam Akers. I think it's a better matchup. It's more of a positive game script, and there's just more implication in terms of Cam Akers getting more touches considering the overall workload of opportunity he's been given the last couple games. JH says, I'm benching Kyron this week. Wish me luck. Best of luck, JH. Jocelyn in the chat says, sup, Andrew. Need some help securing a win in a PPR. I need one wide receiver and one flex. We have Neighbors with a groin injury. We have Jennings. We have Marvin Harrison. We have Jonnu. Thanks. If you need one wide receiver and one flex out of those options, we heard earlier today that Neighbors is in fact going to play. He was just out because, again, they're just trying to make sure that he's ready to go by Sunday. Neighbors would be the automatic there. Alongside of Neighbors, I'm most likely going to fire up and play Marvin Harrison there. Thank you. Toe Jams says, hey, Andrew, start 2.5 PPR. White, Bucky, Downs, Quentin Johnston. Cool. In a half PPR, I think I'm comfortably playing both of the running backs in order to make sure that you don't have any leakage. Therefore, if one running back steals a touchdown from the other or anything of that exchange, you just have all of the backfield kind of locked down. Just like if, in fact, you had DeAndre Swift and Montgomery within the same backfield, you'd lock it all down and make sure none of that value seeps out. Thank you. Anthony Pena. There you go, Anthony. Welcome. He says, full PPR, I need to start one wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins, Romeo Doubs, Cedric Tillman, Adam Thielen, Xavier Worthy, Adunze, Allen, Bateman, Westbrook Ikine, or Douglas. Okay, so you got a lot of available options. Of the ones that you've mentioned, my preferred of the group is probably DeAndre Hopkins and or pivoting to Adunze. Those are the two that I prefer at the current moment in time. Again, Tillman has already played and he got a concussion and left the game. So hopefully he's not in your lineup. But yeah, DeAndre Hopkins would be one. Adunze would be two. And I'd pretty comfortably say, yeah, that's probably the way that I'd go about it. Bateman would probably be three in the event in which he's healthy, ready to go, but we're not 100% certain of that. So DeAndre 1, Odunze 2. Thank you. Dylan Joseph in the chat. Thank you very much, Dylan. Dylan says, standard scoring, flex, Tank Dell or Rico Dowdle in a standard scoring format. Are the Cowboys going to be able to run the ball consistently and effectively against the Washington Commanders? Because yes, did Saquon run absolutely through that team? Of course. But I'm talking to myself. Yes, that is exactly what I'm doing. And I'm also talking to you guys. Can they run the ball effectively and still find success in this scenario? With Zach Martin probably out, with Tyler Smith probably out, I'm probably going to play Tank Dell there if it's my team. I don't want to play Rico Dowdle this week unless I was super desperate. All right, Choobs McGee says, already denied on the Evans and okay trade. Understood. Could I try AJB manager with white neighbors for JJ? Okay, that would be intriguing for this week. Okay, so Choobs, yes. Try that second trade of trying to go after JJ if potentially possible. If not, again, you could still hold going forward. But in the event of your second question, for this week, do I play Westbrook, Ikine, or Thielen at wide receiver? That's a really solid question. As of right now, I probably play Westbrook, Ikine over Thielen. That's what I would prefer to do. If I was in a full PPR, I could be convinced. But again, still, considering he did not practice at a full capacity this week, I truly just don't know how much Thielen is going to play in Sunday's game against the Chiefs, which is already a difficult matchup in itself. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Schnabel in the chat says, PPR Josh Downs or Quentin Johnston? Dude, that one's tough. In a full PPR, I probably lean towards Downs. I think I want to play Quentin. I prefer to play Quentin Johnston in a half PPR. In a full PPR, I'd probably go Downs there, though, at the moment. A little bit more receiving upside in terms of total receptions going in his direction. Marcus Deans says, pivot to Jaden Reed and Quentin Johnston from Jennings and Marvin Harrison. Full PPR, Kyler and Tua, 4-point per passing touchdown. I would prefer to play Kyler over Tua this weekend. As for pivoting to Reed and Quentin Johnston from Jennings and Marvin Harrison, I think I'd still prefer to play Marvin Harrison over Reed. The only reason I wouldn't is if the weather was going to be an impactful negative against his overall upside. So Marvin Harrison and Quentin Johnston would be the two that I prefer. In the event in which the Seattle game is a problem and Reed doesn't really have too much of a weather concern or issue, then you play Reed and Quentin Johnston there. But otherwise, I'd like to play Marvin Harrison and Quentin Johnston as the 1-2 combo there. Thank you. Zach in the chat says, Tank Dell or Juwan Jennings in a full PPR. That I don't even know yet. Honestly, I haven't even gotten to thinking about it that far. That one is a tough question. Damn, Zach. Tank Dell or Juwan Jennings? Can I trust Brandon Allen to throw the... There's no Jair Alexander this weekend. I think at that point, I'm still willing to play Juwan Jennings. At that point. Tingle says, Stafford or Tua? I have Cup, so I'm leaning towards Stafford. And I have the last waiver claim, so might not get Tua. Okay. I mean, look, if you don't get Tua, no harm, no foul. But in the event in which you can choose between the two of them, personally, I would prefer to play Tua. Especially considering all the damage that Stafford did to that secondary last week. 295 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. I'd assume that Tua, coming off of the last 3 games that he has played, very efficient. And obviously, we're getting more production out of Tyreek Hill as we progress. I'd prefer to play Tua there. Just outright, blunt. But in the event in which you can't get him, Stafford's still solid this week because, obviously he's got the weapons at his disposal. Just got to hope that he's, of course, he is the normal Stafford. He doesn't come out and look like Jared Goff of the 2019 season, 2020 season with the Rams. There was a very distinct Rams offense back then where they'd come out in the first quarter, they'd go 3 and out off the rip, and the game was over. Off the rip. So hopefully we don't get that from Stafford this week because of how great that Philadelphia defense is. Okay, continuing on. We continue on. Let's see. Mr. 5000 says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR, sit one, Jacoby Myers, Darius Slayton, or Abdullah. I'm sitting Darius Slayton out of the 3. Thank you. Let's see here. Sack of the South says, traded Debo for Tracy. Okay, cool. Felt bad, but need an RB. I don't think you should feel bad. Tracy's great. I think that's good. Tracy was the only player that I had on my list of potential plays that I was going to suggest on Underdog that I didn't suggest in terms of him going higher than 1.5 receptions. should have probably suggested it, but we could probably go over that tomorrow. There's still going to be a live stream tomorrow afternoon starting at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll also be back here live on Sunday morning starting at 7 a.m. PST. So again, if you guys have questions for this upcoming weekend, understand that this is not the only live stream. I will be back tomorrow and on Sunday morning answering questions to a full capacity with definitely more of a stabilized and confident base as to where I'm going to go with some of these situations, because again, weather, injuries, and additionally, the absence of Brock Purdy definitely throws a wrench into our overall week. As if it wasn't already bad enough with all the bye weeks. We get that into the mix. John S. says, I got Chase and Wilson on bye this week. Played Judy yesterday, beautiful. Pretty happy with his performance. Should I play Leggett, Pierce, McMillan, Palmer, Noah Brown, looking for upside in a non-PPR? Okay, so of the players that you have, I'd probably play Leggett there. Leggett would be number 1, Pierce would be number 2, Noah Brown would be 3, McMillan would be 4, and Palmer would be 5. That is the way that I currently have it and the way that I'm probably going into this weekend playing it as such. John, thank you. Okay, let's see here. Demario Douglas or Watson? If it's a full PPR, I'd rather play Demario Douglas. I think it's just safer in that situation. Robert says, Alec Pierce or Laporta in the flex? That's a great question. I probably play Laporta there this week, to be totally honest. Again, when you have an offense like the Lions, where they're scoring as often as they do, it just gives that much more of a comfortability to playing one of their extended pieces, even though like Jameson Williams and Laporta, in comparison to the other three, like Amon-Ra, David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs, that trio, that trifecta, the triforce of those three, there have been 8 games of their 10 this season in which they have all scored 1 touchdown in that game. So they've all just been dominating over the course of the season. Again, they're breaking NFL records, but considering there is the association with the offense and they score as highly as they do, there's just a little bit of a higher potential for Laporta. Again, just in the same way in which Brock Wright scored a touchdown last week, for just the association with the offense to somehow just be blessed with a touchdown, which on top of yardage and receptions alone just make you that much of a safer play. Okay, let's see here. Matt Friend says, flex Worthy, Waddle, or Dobbs? I think I'm playing. I think. I got to think about that one, Matt. I got to think about that one. Twisted Folk sends in a question. Says, half PPR, flex McConkey or Tracy? In a half PPR, let me see how I had it ranked on Thursday. Let's close this. Okay. So half PPR. Tracy or Lad McConkey. As of right now, based on Thursday rankings, where's Lad? Okay. So as of Thursday, I had Lad McConkey 3 spots ahead of Tyrone Tracy. That's probably the way I go about it. I probably played Lad McConkey there, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Expected shootout, of course. G Santos says, instead of FD, should have put in Doge at 49 cents. Is that a crypto reference? I don't understand it. Did Doge go to the moon or something? Schnabel says, where do you have the Chiefs ranked this week? Top 5 defense. They're number 5 specifically. Charlene says, would you bet on anything Otten this week? Interestingly enough, I didn't even get to any of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm willing to do stuff for Bucky Irving and Mike Evans this weekend. I just haven't even gotten to looking over the numbers, so I could potentially do so. Probably tomorrow we could talk about that. Knicks or Baker? I'd rather have Knicks personally, but again, they're both top 6 quarterbacks this week, so I don't think there's a wrong answer. Goff or Mahomes? Thanks, Andrew. I prefer to play Goff this week. Kittle or Otten? I'd rather play Otten at the moment, considering of the absence of Purdy, of course. Let's see here. Debo or JMO? I'd rather play JMO, to be honest. Is Waddle droppable? Depends. Depends on what kind of league you're playing in. If you're playing in like an 8-team or 10-team league in which you've got a great semblance of wide receiver talent across the board, then yeah, I would argue that he is potentially droppable. But if you're playing in a 12-team, then no. Ibrahim sends in a question. Says, in a 12-man PPR, we have Knicks, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, J.K. Dobbins, Kyron Williams, A.J. Brown, Kupp, Juwan, Njoku, Hawkinson. Should I trade Kyron and Juwan Jennings for Kamara and Lockett, or Kyron for Bowers? Okay, hold up. You have Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, J.K. Dobbins, Kyron Williams. Okay. So, Considering the situation that you have and that you are currently in, once everyone is back from their bye weeks, the assumption would be that you're playing Chase Brown and Derrick Henry as your RB1 and 2 rest of season, okay? To when you are then playing A.J. Brown and Kupp as your wide receiver 1 and 2, either Hawkinson or, Njoku as your tight end, then the question is who's in your flex? It could be Jawan Jennings, it could be J.K. Dobbins, it could be Kyren Williams. If you were going to trade Kyren away for Bowers, then I would say that the only way that I'd feel comfortable making that move is if you can then theoretically trade either Njoku or Hawkinson in order to reestablish some sort of running back depth. So like if you can somehow, some way, Ibrahim, make a trade in which, because I don't like the first one at all, not in any capacity. I would not make that first trade, considering Taysom's overall upside going forward. But if you could be like, hey, Andrew, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to trade for Bowers, but then I'm going to, after that, take J.K. Dobbins and David Njoku or J.K. Dobbins and Hawkinson and trade that for a better running back. If you could do that, then sure. Otherwise, I keep it as is. I don't make any moves in that scenario. Gio Ortiz sends in a question. Gio, thank you. Says PPR, one running back, one flex. Amir Abdullah, Rico Dowdle, Roshan Johnson, Estime. Okay, so of those available, I am playing Amir Abdullah out of all those running backs. Unless DeAndre Swift is out, I am not playing Roshan there. I'm not playing Rico. I'm not playing Estime. Okay, continuing on. Then you have Rome Odunze, you have Disley as your two alternative options. You're starting Laporta. Oh, there you go. My YouTube crashed. Fantastic. We'd love to see it. Okay, continuing on. Gio, you have Laporta. Okay, cool. Yeah, I would suggest playing Disley in the flex. That's the way that I would go about it. Should I still start Jennings over Rome Odunze? Oh, man, that's a good one. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Between the two of them, it's so much of an uncertainty as to what that offense is going to be constructed of. Personally, I probably, if it was my team, I'm probably still playing Jennings ahead of Odunze, but at the moment, I am playing Disley in your flex, Gio. Thank you. Alongside of course, like I mentioned earlier, Amir Abdullah as your RB. All right, Ibrahim sent in a follow-up. Says, I have Knicks, JK, Chase Brown, Kenneth Walker, Kupp. Okay, we have Adams, we have Addison, we have Dobbs, we have Taysom, we have Bowers. Make trade for me if needed. Make a trade for me if needed. Is that the team that... Okay, Ibrahim, I'm curious. Is that the team that you would be trading for? Or trading with to get Bowers? Is that the Bowers team in your league? If that is in fact the case, just type 1 in the chat. Thank you. Rodney Bryce in the chat says, full PPR, currently 7-4. Must-win situation. Devontae Smith is out. Should I drop BTJ and pick up Dobbs, Watson, Odunze, or Addison? Of those available options, if I was going to pick up one of them, it would be Odunze that gets picked up. Now, under the assumption that you can't put Devontae Smith on your IR spot and open up a roster spot, and you have to drop BTJ because that is your worst player in order to accomplish this, then yes, you do so. Luke C says, hey buddy, did you see my super chat? Looking to rank PPR. I thought I answered it, Luke. Maybe I skipped it accidentally. Let me go ahead and let me go into the chat real quick and let me see if I can find it. Luke C. Luke C says, Booty, Westbrook Ikine, Bourne, Bateman, or Deontay Johnson. Yeah, so I had answered this earlier. So there was a contingency involved. If Bateman gets a full practice by tomorrow, he's number 1. In the event in which he doesn't, and he's going to probably miss Monday, then obviously he's off the list. But under the assumption that he practices tomorrow, it'd be Bateman 1, Westbrook Ikine 2. I'd probably say Booty 3, Bourne 4, Deontay Johnson 5. Well, actually, if okay, you know what? Now that I think about it, if Bateman is actually out by Monday, but look, we won't know by Monday. That's the issue. So yeah, it just has to be Westbrook Ikine. That is the way that you go about it. Booty 2nd, Kendrick Bourne 3rd. Because unless they designate Bateman out tomorrow or Sunday morning, we don't know whether or not Deontay Johnson and or Bateman are going to be active for that Monday night game. So that in itself is very much so contingent on a lot of scenarios. By tomorrow, hopefully we'll get more clarity on it. But as of right now, if Bateman is fully practicing tomorrow, great. We start him. In the event in which he is quote-unquote out and designated out or given the doubtful tag, you'd play Deontay Johnson on Monday. If neither of those things happen and it's just a bunch of question marks, then we're just playing Westbrook Ikine in that scenario. But I mean, considering you have the pivoting option of Bateman to Deontay, if I'm you, I'm just waiting till Monday and I'm playing one of the two. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, getting back into the live chat. How long have we been here for? I think we've been here for like an hour and 20. Not bad. Okay, cool. So we're still early in the stream. Appreciate y'all coming through. Let's see here. Did we get a response from Ibrahim? I don't know if we did. Daniel in this chat says, Ridley or Jonnu in a half PPR. I'd rather have Ridley this week. Baker or Knicks. Again, both are really great options. I prefer to play Knicks this week. Let's see here. LeBron's. Okay, brother. What kind of name? What are we doing, brother? Half PPR says, as an A-Chain owner, should I stash Jalen Wright or Roshan Johnson? I have a good running back, so I don't need to start either anytime soon, but just for a stash. Swift's groin is a little bit concerning. Yeah, if I was in your position, I would rather have Roshan Johnson on roster. The Bid Podcast says in a half PPR, start 2, Debo, Dell, Ridley. I'll take Dell and Ridley. Thank you. Maddie says Herbert or Daniels in a full PPR. Thank you. I would rather play, as of right now, just to be safe with it. Yeah, if it's my team, I'm playing Herbert this week. That's the way that I'm going about it. Victor Blanco, what did you send in, my man? Oh, Victor says Jamar for Amon-Ra, So me and him I've been talking. Do I do 1-for-1? So my Jamar for his Amon-Ra, or 2-for-2, Jamar and Sutton for Amon-Ra and Zay Flowers. So you're asking, do I prefer Sutton or Flowers rest of season? Let me see the schedules. Let's go look at the wide receiver strength of schedule for the fantasy playoffs. So here's the issue. Both of them have a week 14 bye, so like you're not getting out of the bye week between either of them anyway. So it's just purely just a matter of like who has the better rest of season schedule. So as it currently stands, looking at Denver in comparison to Baltimore, relatively equal in terms of fantasy point per game allowed to opposing wide receivers. So Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Cincinnati in comparison to New England. Yeah, no, at this point, New York Giants, Pittsburgh, and Houston, yeah, I don't really have a preference per se. If I was going to pick one of the two, I'd like to have Sutton. So yeah, I don't mind a 2-for-2 in that scenario either. I think that's a solid overall pickup. If you can make it a 2-for-2, I'll take that happily. If they don't want it and they still want a 1-for-1, I think it still helps you in the long run because again, it helps you capture a victory this week, which is much so necessary. All right, Jenga sends in a question, says, who is projected higher rest of season / playoffs, Achane or Bijan? Depends on scoring format. What's your scoring format, Jenga? I would say in a half PPR, it is Bijan. In a standard, it's probably also Bijan. In a full PPR, it's Achane. Who has the higher floor and who has the higher ceiling? I think the higher floor is, you know what, to be totally honest, I think they both have very similar floor and ceilings of production. And yeah, I think that's just, it's kind of built in. Both of them are, you know what, now that I think about it, no. If I was going to prefer one of the two running backs going forward, honestly, I'd rather have Bijan Robinson. That's what I would do. Both of them are highly implicated within the passing game. Bijan can have those eventual games in which he gets like 4, 5, 7 receptions. So really, I don't mind having Bijan. If you prefer to have Achane, again, I'm going to have them almost entirely just probably back-to-back ranked rest of season, regardless of scoring format. But in a full PPR, even in that scenario, I'm kind of leaning towards Bijan. So I think I take Bijan in every format. Jennings or Rashad White? I'd probably just rather play Rashad White there at that point. Disley or Otten? Again, I have Otten one spot ahead of him. Fantasy Forecast says, is Jennings cooked now? Yes, he is. Should I trade him for BTJ? No. I wouldn't go as far as that. If we were going to get a confirmation that Purdy's going to be out for the rest of the season, then I'd say we're cooked. But, we would still assume that we're going to get the return of Brock Purdy in a future performance. So I'm not trading him for BTJ as of yet. Corey Miller sends in questions in the chat. All right, Corey, let's see where you're at. Oops, I still want to do that. Corey Miller. Corey, I don't see your question in the live chat. If you could do me a favor and read... Oh, there it is. Never mind. My apologies. Just sent it in. It says in a 12-team... 12-team full PPR. My team is Stroud, Connor, Aaron Jones, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, London, Olave, Kittle, Cam Akers, Benson, Houston defense, Houston kicker, defense is Arizona. Got it. Playoffs. How confident are you rolling into playoffs? Suggestions or weaknesses? Look, your biggest weakness is Stroud. I do not like that at all in any scenario. So everything else for this team is fantastic. I truly do believe that. Chase, Amon-Ra, London is an incredible trio. Connor's got a great matchups, and so does Aaron Jones. Kittle's a stud across the board because of his touchdown upside. Stroud's your biggest weakness and your issue that once you get into the fantasy playoffs could kill you in the long run. Like when I look at the upcoming schedule for Houston, specifically in the fantasy playoffs, yes, they have Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore. He does not have a great track record against Baltimore or Kansas City I mean, Miami could put them to the test, honestly. So considering how he's played, I don't like either of those three matchups personally, as it currently stands. So if I'm in your position, I'm trying to find another quarterback option for the future. Ibrahim says, sent the question in the chat. Sorry, meant to follow up a comment. I just meant if I could combine two players to do a good trade, or is that a solid team? Okay, understood. So okay, yeah. My question, Ibrahim, to your most recent super that you sent in, my question was, the Bowers team that you just sent me, is that another team of yours, or is that the team that you would be trading with? So that's what I wanted to know. Because if that is a team of yours, it makes it different than if I'm trying to pull Bowers off that team because that's somebody else's. So I just wanted clarity on that, if you can give me that. Let's see here. Billy sends in a question. Thank you, Billy. Appreciate it. Says, half PPR. Should I panic, sell Debo for Njigba? How desperate are we for a win this week? Because if we're at that point where like, hey, listen, we need to win this week, then yes, I make the move. I absolutely do. Luke C says PPR rest of season. Rank Devontae Smith, Sutton, Ridley. I don't know how long Devontae Smith's going to be out for. So as of right now, it would technically have to be Sutton, Ridley, and Devontae. Now, if you told me that Devontae was healthy, I would tell you probably the same ranking. Sutton, Ridley, Devontae. But again, I don't know what his overall injury status is, so keep that in mind. Tony Lopez says, when are we getting a Fact of the Matter merch? Not anytime soon, brother. Not anytime soon. Okay. Toby says, DJ Moore over Sutton or Irving. Nope, I'd rather have Sutton or Irving this week. Football says, in a full PPR, flexed Njoku over Jameson Williams this week. Sad face. Yep, that is tough. Holden Robinson says, Ramondre Stevenson or Bucky for rest of season. For rest of season, I'd rather have Bucky Irving because of the upcoming schedule. Just look at it across the board. It looks like six of the next 7 games should be victories for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My bold prediction a couple weeks ago was that they make the playoffs still as a wild card seed in the NFC. Let's see here. Lightning Motivation says, hey, Andrew, I want your opinion on something. For an 8-man parlay, who would you rather choose for a touchdown? AJ Brown against the Rams at plus 111 or Joe Mixon against the Titans? I'd much rather play Joe Mixon. In terms of an anytime touchdown, Mixon would be the preferred. Again, Mixon has scored a touchdown in 7 of the last 7 healthy games. It's just an automatic at this point. Considering they take on Tennessee, they're expected to win. They're expected to find the end zone. If they're going to find the end zone at least twice on Sunday, one of them is going to be Mixon. I think it's just too free. I mean, he's coming off a week where he scored 3 touchdowns. Like, the guy's just been unstoppable on the ground. I'd even go as far to say, like, I might even suggest, Lightning, that you take first touchdown of the game is Ridley, which is an even higher, potential. Anyway, but minus 120 anytime touchdown's beautiful. All right, let's see here. Rogo says, the way I see it, I'm putting trust in Baker rather than Otten. Evans might not play. Evans might not play. Since when? Let's not throw that into the universe. I don't need that. I don't need that negative energy. Frenzy 40K says, okay, so Frenzy says Roshan Johnson, Abdullah Mostert, or Gus Edwards. Frenzy, I'm playing Abdullah there for sure. Yeah. Red and Black says, hi, Andrew. Pick 2 tight ends, rest of season, PPR, Laporta, Ingram, Otten, Disley, Taysom. Tough one. I don't think this is objectively that tough. In a full PPR, I kind of think that the safest overall 2 is Evan Ingram and Cade Otten. And the risky potential upside is Taysom. Now, if I was in your position, you're like, hey, listen, I kind of want to take the risk. You take Otten because, again, Taysom's on a bye week this week, and so is Evan Ingram. And you take Otten and Taysom. But if you were just like, hey, I'm just going to play it safe, I just need like solid points every week and maybe someone that I can even flex considering their target opportunity may increase, it would be Ingram and Otten for the remainder of the season. Thank you. Alrighty, May, Stroud, or Anthony Richardson. As of this week, I'd rather play May. Kanch says, full PPR, Eckler, Worthy, or Dobbs. As of right now, I'd probably, jeez Louise. That one's tough. I got to think about that one. Beaver says, hey, Andrew, rolling with the Commanders defense this week. Should I drop the 49ers defense on my bench for the Cardinals? Yes, I would. Absolutely. Tony Lopez says, is Moody still a good kicker to play this week? Nope, absolutely not. Especially with the weather, it's not great. Hunt or Downs in the flex? Highlights 2.0. I would rather play Hunt. Jawan G says, best start Herbert or Daniels? Between the two of them, I'd prefer to play Justin Herbert personally. B Van Van says full PPR. Would you go with Thielen or Westbrook Ikine? In a full PPR, I don't know, actually. In a full PPR, it's skewed more into the direction of Thielen because of the role within the offense. So maybe we go that direction. Probably by Sunday, I would tell you that Thielen is projected more within my model in comparison to Westbrook Ikine. But personally, I would rather play Westbrook Ikine because at least I know how much he's going to play. Ibrahim says, just meant if my team needed a trade or if it's good. Ibrahim, you're confusing me even more, brother. Okay, so for the Knicks team that you're talking about, Knicks, Chase Brown, Henry, JK, Kyron, etc. It is a great team across the board. I don't think there's a necessity to have to make a trade. You could make the trade because you have so much depth, but at the same time, it may be in your best interest to have the said depth because with the uncertainty of Juwan Jennings and all that kind of jazz, you might want to have the additional player on your team, especially with the upcoming Henry, bye week ahead. So as of right now, I would say you keep it as is. As for the second message that you sent in, Ibrahim, with Knicks, JK, Chase Brown, K9, Kupp, Adams, Addison, Dobbs, Taysom, Bowers, that team is pretty solid as well. I mean, again, the only issue that I have with this team is that your wide receiver 2 is weak. Adams, Addison, and Dobbs is very sketchy in comparison to what Kupp presents. But the only way you could theoretically improve upon that is if you made trades. And right now, considering you have Chase Brown on a bye week, really you're not in a position to make trades, especially with Adams being a piece that you would have to move. So you really cannot move unless you're going to take like Bowers and branch him off. Like you would send Bowers and Adams for a tight end and wide receiver, the wide receiver being the upgrade and the tight end being the downgrade. Like you could theoretically take Adams and Bowers and go get Hunter Henry and I don't want to throw out like too crazy of names, but you could probably make moves of that caliber, but I don't even think you move with the second team because you need these players to come off of the bye. But yeah, wide receiver is the issue, which I would try to fix. How do I do so? I'm looking to try to trade for Adams. Sorry, not Adams. I'm trying to trade for Higgins or London. If you can try to get one of those, Ibrahim, as your wide receiver 2 rest of the season, I'd potentially explore doing so. If Taysom has to be the guinea pig that gets, trade foddered, then, so be it. That's the whole point of having him on roster. That's why you have 2 tight ends. Thank you. All right, so let's see here. We took care of that. Cup for Bowers says, oh, that's a really good question. Lopez, as of right now, do I trade Cup for Bowers? Probably, I'd say it's equal. I don't think it's completely out of the realm. But if it was me, I prefer to keep Cup. Unless you're stacked the wide receiver, I don't make that move. Myers or Odunze, PPR rest of the season. I think Myers kind of still has that built in. As much as I want it to personally be Odunze, I don't know if it's going to end up being that, as the case. Lightning Motivation says, if you could pick 4 people to make money on Underdog for anytime touchdown, who would it be? So we did this earlier today. The 4 players that I would suggest for anytime touchdowns going into this weekend. Number 1 is Derrick Henry. Number 2 is Joe Mixon. Number 3 is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And number 4 is either, you could pick one of the 2, would be either be David Montgomery, anytime rushing touchdown, or Brian Robinson, anytime rushing touchdown. Those would be the 4. I named 5 names, but the 3 primary, again, are Henry, Mixon, and St. Brown. Because Amon-Ra's done it for 8 consecutive games. Derrick Henry's done it for 11 consecutive games. And Joe Mixon's done it for 7. Austin sends in a question. Says, I picked up Disley. Should I play him over Kittle? Yeah, I would. Jenga says, hi, I have one more question. I need one for the flex slot in a full PPR league. My options are Worthy, Odunze, Watson, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Jonnu. Understood. The way that I would rank it in this following order, Jenga, would be as such. I would play in a full PPR. Think about this. If it was my team, I'd probably go Odunze 1, Jonnu 2, Wan'Dale 3, Worthy 4, Watson 5. That's the way that I go about it. Okay. McLaughlin or Parker Romo this week? I'd rather play McLaughlin as of right now. I think the offense is going to take a huge step forward here. JH says half PPR. Keep Jennings. Quentin Johnston and Shakir are available. For rest of season, I want to have Jennings on roster. For this week, again, I'd rather play Quentin Johnson. But if we're talking about rest of season, yeah, Jennings is the most valuable. The order of those three receivers rest of season value would be Jennings first, Shakir second, and Quentin Johnson third. JC says questions in the chat. JC, where are you? There you go. Says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR start to Worthy, Westbrook, Ikine, and Johnston. Quentin Johnston has to play. Oh, you also have Myers there. So yeah, Quentin Johnston and Myers are the top two. The order at which I would go about this, JC, would be Quentin Johnston 1, Myers 2, Westbrook 3, Worthy 4. That's the way that that's the way that I would start it on my league. Diamond Jim says Neighbors or Bucky in the flex and a half PPR. Considering Neighbors already has a groin issue, I probably just pivot to playing Bucky there just to be safe. I don't want to make any risks and or kind of mistakes in that scenario. I'll just take the automatic points that I'm going to get with that. All right, so we've been here for an hour and 37. A little bit longer of a Friday stream, but again, we did not have a Hidden Gems video earlier today because, again, there weren't just enough players, in my opinion, that I felt confident enough suggesting. Again, for those of you who just joined us, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. But this is pretty much where I'm going to call it. I'm going to answer a couple more questions, and I'm going to go ahead and cue the music and end the stream. Earlier on in the stream, we talked about potential, hidden gem options as Amir Abdullah and Westbrook Ikine, two guys that I'm very comfortable with. We also went ahead and put together entries in regards to Underdog, put together a bunch of them, 5 in fact. So if you want to rewind throughout the live stream, you can go ahead and find those. Outside of that, answering a couple more questions, then I'm heading out. I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow starting at 1 p.m. PST, Sunday morning starting at 7 a.m. PST, answering questions. I appreciate y'all. Okay. Ibrahim says, I'll try to trade Bowers and Adams for Henry and Evans. I don't know. I don't know if I like that though. Ibrahim, I don't know if I like that. Like, it's almost in line with what I said, but I don't know if I like Evans. Like, I think it may, well, maybe I do. I think I keep what you have. Fantasy Forecast says moves to make. We have Hurts, we have Kyron, we have K9, we have Chase Brown, we have Brian Robinson, we have Evans, we have AJ, we have Nico, we have Juwan Jennings, we have Marvin Harrison, Quentin Johnson, Bowers, Hancock 74. I mean, you're not missing anything. Says, feeling like I'm missing something. I don't see what you're missing, brother. You have Jalen Hurts and Brock Bowers. You have 2 of the top 3 wide quarterback and tight ends. Then you have Kyron, K9, Chase Brown, Brian Robinson, Evans, AJ, Nico, Juwan Jennings, Marvin Harrison, Quentin Johnston. You're missing nothing. The only thing you're missing is some good rest. Maybe a nice nap, your Fantasy Forecast. Because once you wake up, you'll realize this is a monster squad, brother. That thing's ridiculous. Giggs sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I'm currently 3-8. Any advice on my team? Trades I should make: quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels; running backs, Jacobs, Dobbins, Akers, Roshan Johnson. Wide receivers are Lamb, Downs, Darnell Mooney, DJ Moore, Waddle, David Njoku, and Pitts. I mean, look, at this point, if you're 3-8, your playoff hopes are pretty much within a pretty tough situation here. If I was gonna make suggestions, it would be to trade Mooney and Kyle Pitts this weekend to see if you can get a better wide receiver and start it over Downs. As for who do I categorize as better, it would be anybody that's named ahead of him in the rankings on Wednesday's wide receiver episode. If that's something that you could potentially accomplish before Sunday, then that's the way that you go about it. Thank you. Appreciate it, Gigs. But otherwise, again, at this point, Daniel's a solid start. So is Jacobs. So is Dobbins. So those are your 2 running backs. You're going to play Lamb and Downs as your wide receivers. You need a flex, which at this point this week would be DJ Moore. David Njoku, I'm assuming, already started. So yeah, if you were going to make a move, it would be taking Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney and trying to maybe get a better flexible option within the upcoming performance as of this week. Maybe trading like Pitts in order to get, throwing it out there, Kareem Hunt on a 1-week kind of like a quick buy in which you can just throw him in and flex would be beautiful. Final question. Lopez says, team is quarterback Bo Nix. Running backs Chase Brown. We have Christian McCaffrey plus Jacobs. We have Kupp, London Neighbors, Ridley, Moore. Should I trade Kupp for Bowers? Okay, now I understand the context of this team. Even in this scenario, I don't want to make that trade. I don't. I would keep what you have. I would legitimately rather just go ahead and hit the waivers and play like Disley or Jonnu or stuff like that every week rather than make that trade. I'd still keep it as is. I don't feel as confident with that potential pivot. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. Again, I'll be back tomorrow, 1 p.m. PST, Sunday, 7 a.m. PST. If you're not able to make it throughout those streams, again, you can always check out the Patreon to find rankings every single Sunday morning, unlimited questions answered. Or, of course, you can check out Underdog by signing up using code Andrew. Of course, you can get those rankings sent to you from my email directly to yours, like I mentioned in every single video. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. We're queuing the double helix. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.